Okay, picture this. It's the absolute dead of winter. Snow is piled up high outside. But instead of settling for that kind of sad, wilted store-bought produce, you literally just step down into your cellar and pull out a perfectly crisp, nutrient-dense head of fresh cabbage. I know, it sounds like a scene from a century ago, right? But honestly, with just a little bit of know-how, it's totally possible today. So welcome to this explainer. We're going to completely master the timeless off-grid tradition of winter cabbage storage. So the big question, do you actually want fresh, crunch-ready cabbage all winter long? Of course you do. Being able to preserve your own harvest is just an absolute game changer for any beginner gardener or homesteader. It doesn't just lock in those crucial vitamins when fresh food is practically non-existent, but it also really connects us to a sustainable way of living that, our ancestors perfected over generations. We're going to break down the exact science and the traditional methods to actually make this work for you. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our logical roadmap for today. We'll start with the value of preservation, then look at selecting and preparing your cabbage. After that, we'll cover optimizing cellar conditions, proven storage techniques, and preventing rot and spoilage. And we'll wrap it all up with some final tips and a conclusion. Right, let's get into section 1, the value of preservation, a timeless off-grid tradition. Storing cabbage isn't just about shucking food into a cold, dark room. It's actually about really understanding the biology of the plant. As the slide says, successful long-term storage depends on the ability to manage the vital processes of plant tissues after harvest. See, your harvested cabbage isn't just a dead object. It's literally a living, breathing system. It's still respiring and transpiring. So our entire goal here is to use the Earth's natural insulation to slow those metabolic processes down to a crawl without actually freezing or killing the plant. Moving right along to section 2, selecting and preparing cabbage. Building the right foundation. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the hard truth it reveals. You literally cannot just toss any random cabbage into a cellar and expect it to make it to spring. Actually, scratch that. Success starts months earlier with the very genetics of the seed you plant. There's a massive difference between varieties. Early spring varieties, like Ditsmarco or Let R F1, have this loose structure and super high moisture content. Great for a quick summer slaw, sure, but they will absolutely fail and rot in winter storage. Instead, you've got to go with late maturing varieties. Think Balkan or Kyosa 17. These take up to 130 days to mature, forming incredibly dense, tight heads with a naturally low respiration rate. They are practically designed for winter preservation. Once you've got the right cabbage, the physical prep is everything. First off, you want to wait to harvest until the outside temperature drops to somewhere between 0 and 5 degrees Celsius. That natural chill basically puts the plant into sleep mode. When you cut it, leave a stem of exactly 2 to 2.5 centimeters. And this next part is absolutely crucial. Leave 2 or 3 of those outer, slightly tough green wrapper leaves totally intact. Don't peel them off. They act like a vital suit of armor, protecting the inner core from physical damage and nasty fungal spores. And whatever you do, do not wash the cabbage. Just let the soil air dry. Extra moisture is your absolute worst enemy right now. Which brings us nicely to section 3, optimizing cellar conditions, the science of the microclimate. And this table brilliantly illustrates exactly what we need to do next. We have to create a highly specific scientific microclimate to keep our cabbage fast asleep. Look at the temperature range. We're talking -1 to +1 degrees Celsius. If it creeps over 5 degrees, the plant breathes too fast and burns through its sugars. If it dips below -1, the water inside the cells actually freezes, expands, and totally destroys the plant tissue. Now for humidity, it needs to be really high, like 90 to 95%, so the cabbage doesn't wilt. But, not so high that condensation forms and triggers rot. You also need complete zero-lux darkness to prevent sprouting, and constant micro-aeration so the plants don't literally suffocate in their own carbon dioxide. All right, on to section 4, proven storage techniques, from shelving to traditional clay. So how do you physically set up your cabbages inside this perfect little microclimate? Well, you've got a bunch of proven options depending on your specific cellar setup. If you've got a sturdy ceiling, hanging the cabbages upside down by their roots on hooks is absolutely brilliant. It gives you 360-degree airflow and completely eliminates the pressure points where rot usually kicks off. If you're more of a shelf person, just use slatted wooden shelves and space the heads about 10 centimeters apart. If your cellar runs a bit dry, you can actually pack the stems down into boxes filled with up to 10 centimeters of clean, dry sand. Or you can individually wrap each head in plain paper. Just make sure you swap it out if it gets damp. But I have to say, my absolute favorite technique from the research is this ancient clay method. It is
wild. You take your prepared cabbage and you literally smear the entire head in a thick clay paste, kind of like the consistency of sour cream. Let it dry outside under a canopy and then hang it up in the cellar. That clay dries into a rock-hard shell that creates an airtight, completely antiseptic barrier against decay. It totally stops the cabbage from drying out and blocks pests. It's definitely labor-intensive, for sure. But man, is it an incredibly effective historical trick.
Let's look at Section 5, Preventing Rot and Spoilage, Guarding Your Harvest. Okay, so even with the perfect prep and an amazing cellar, you still have to actively guard your harvest against some invisible enemies that can ruin your food supply in a matter of days. The big chemical enemy, ethylene gas. As we see here, ethylene is a plant hormone pumped out by climacteric fruits, basically apples and pears. It's a ripening gas. If you store your pristine winter cabbage in the same room as a box of apples, that ethylene will aggressively attack the cabbage. The leaves will turn yellow, get loose, and just rapidly decay. So the golden rule of the cellar is never ever store apples or pears anywhere near your cabbages.
Then we have the biological enemies. You really need to do routine visual inspections. If you spot gray mold, that usually means your humidity is swinging around too much or the cabbage got too cold. You have to immediately sort and pull out the infected heads or those spores will spread like wildfire. Soft rot, on the other hand, usually pops up if the cabbage got cracked or bruised during harvest. Bacteria gets into the wound and just turns the whole thing to mush. Sadly, you can't save a head with soft rot for storage. You just have to cut away the gross part and eat the good part immediately.
And that brings us to Section 6, Final Tips and Conclusion, Securing Your Winter Food Supply. To wrap things up, I want to share a few pro tips that will seriously level up your cellar game. First, before you even bring the veggies inside, whitewash your cellar walls with slaked lime. It's a cheap, old-school way to completely disinfect the space. Next, and this is a great trick, dust your cabbage heads with chalk. Chalk is calcium carbonate, and it creates this alkaline microenvironment on the leaf that literally stops acidic fungal spores in their tracks. Also, while apples are terrible neighbors, root veggies like carrots, beets, and celery are perfect cellar companions for cabbage. Oh, and if your cellar temperature accidentally spikes and you just can't cool it down, don't panic. That warmer temp is the perfect excuse to just chop it all up and ferment the excess into delicious, highly nutritious sauerkraut. Now, the really crucial point I want to leave you with is this disclaimer. What we've talked about today are the scientific ideals and proven methods. But every single cellar is a unique environment. Your success is going to vary based on your specific microclimate, your local weather, all of that. You kind of have to put on your scientist hat in your own home, monitor your temps, watch for condensation, and adapt these techniques so they work perfectly for your specific space. So, are you ready to transform your cellar into a winter oasis and keep your harvest crisp right up until spring? By picking those dense, late-stage varieties, prepping them properly, and dialing in that delicate balance of temp and humidity, you can completely bypass the grocery store and eat incredibly well all winter. I really hope you found this explainer helpful. Now get out there, prep that cellar, and enjoy the crisp, awesome reward of your own winter harvest.